So thanks for being here. By the way, before I start, Teeling Whiskey here is the raffle prize. So I'll mention Teeling later on because there are actually joint venture partners as well. So it's an interesting story. But my name is Bart Jaworski. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Group 11. I'm a geologist and ex-mining analyst, over 25 years experience in the industry. And when I started this company with David over 10 years ago, our plan was to discover the next big zinc deposit within the country in this prolific Irish ore field. There's world-class zinc deposits here. And the good news is that we have made a discovery. It is now, this is 3 years on now, it is considered the most significant mineral discovery in Ireland in over a decade. It's called Ballywire. And not only is it high-grade zinc and lead, as you would expect in Ireland, but it's also punching way above its weight in terms of silver. So where in Ireland usually you get either 0 to 60 grams per ton silver, here we're getting 50 to 150 grams per ton consistently within the discovery. So that's a really good point to make. We also just found the copper roots to the system. So there's an emerging copper story, which has just started. And that's really where the market cap went up because the market realizes it's a copper story too. And of course we have germanium in there because every time we have high-grade zinc, there's germanium in with it. And germanium has gone, if you want, I've got a slide in the appendix to show you, but germanium prices have gone absolutely through the roof recently on export bans by China. Germanium's used in AI chips. So that's a really interesting metal. We have a little bit of antimony kicking in there as well. The other key thing to know about Group 11 is that we are Michael Gentile and Glencore owned. So those are our two largest shareholders. Glencore, our relationship there is threefold in that they are our largest shareholder or close to it. They're our next door neighbor and they sit on the board as well. So that's an interesting profile. You don't see that with many other juniors where they have Glencore in such a relationship with. So that's really worth noting. And also Michael Gentile has been supporting us since 2020. He's put over $3 million of his own money into Group 11 over the years, and he's just a fantastic guy. He's just joined the board about a year ago, and that's been absolutely fantastic. We love having Mike on the board. I guess the other thing to mention is the funds. So as I've only recently started putting the funds in here, but just so you know, we have Timolo, Jean-Francois Tardif Strategies, Ixius is some of the funds. That's about 8% of the capital structure. And the other key things I often get asked here is what's your cash, what's your market cap? So market cap is about $85 million Canadian now. Much better than the $5 million we were trading at a few years ago. So discovery definitely helps. And cash, we've never been in a better position in terms of actual having cash in the till and then the specific targets to go after. So we've never been in a better position. We've got 8.4 million Canadian in the till. That's after a bought deal this summer with Cormark and Beacon. They raised us 5.75 million. A little bit about the team then. So you see Michael top right there. For those of you who don't know Michael, he's a portfolio manager, 20 years experience, made all his money in the resource sector, very astute guy, and I encourage you to have a look online for any of his videos if you haven't already. Franz Bullman is the Glencore appointee, so he's the finance manager at Glencore Zinc. He's based in Europe. Fantastic guy to have on the team as well, and it's within my own time zone because obviously I live in Dublin. Dan McInnes is a geologist, a longtime mining executive and associate with Mag Silver, which obviously just got bought out. It's a very happy story there. Then there's myself, then there's Brendan Cahill. Brendan is a lawyer, longtime mining executive, associated with Exelon and Palangio. He's also associated with the Irish diaspora in Canada. And then Alessandro Bertelli is a chartered accountant and associated with the Lundin Group of companies. So that's a little 40,000-foot view of the board. On the management side, we have Jasmine over in Vancouver. She's our CFO. I mentioned David at the very beginning. David is the guy I started the company with. He's an Irish geologist, has done this before, and so we're really the engine room of the company day to day for the last 10 years. And then we have Mark Holdstock, who is famous in Irish circles for having discovered part of the largest zinc deposit in Ireland, which is Tara. So he's actually responsible for the last 20 years of mining there. He discovered the Swex zone, which is about 20 million tons or so. So he's a great guy to have on the team as well. So now, where are we? We are here in the on the Rathdowney Trend in the yellow circle there. Where the Rathdowney Trend is that green stripe, which also contains the Galmoy and the Lachine deposits as well. We are about 20 kilometers away, i.e. within trucking distance of Glencore's Palace Green deposit in that yellow circle there. And then I'm just gonna jump into this yellow box momentarily, but before I do, I would be remiss if I didn't mention that Ireland just got #1 in the world for Policy Perception Index as part of the Fraser Institute's annual mining survey that was just only published a few weeks ago. So that's a pretty significant development for us. 19th in the world for overall investment attractiveness. So basically the Fraser basically takes the Policy Perception Index, which is a purview into low expropriation risk, good transparency, a good mining code, stable politics, all those things, and then marries it with prospectivity geologically. And so I think once Ballywire gets crystallized into an MRE, we'll probably up our standing in Ireland for overall attractiveness. But 20 out of 80 is not too bad either. So the other key differentiating factor for Ireland is its infrastructure. So for base metal projects, we're producing tons of concentrate per day. You need to be by a road, river, or the coastline. And if you don't have that, there's a lot of examples of big, beautiful discoveries out there in the world. They're stranded to this day because they're not by infrastructure. So it's a killer if you don't have it for base metal projects. So here we have we have that in spades here in Ireland. We have roads, rail, power, year-round tidewater, and we're close to the European smelters. So that's a really big boon. That means we don't have to pay billions of dollars for that, where other projects would. And this is why the 6 discoveries that I've highlighted here that have been made over the last 60 years have actually been put into production. And that's why the majors are here. So it's a proven jurisdictions. The majors are here: Boliden, Glencore, South 32. The others that have been here in the past: mining, Vedanta, Lundin, Teck, etc. So it's a great jurisdiction. So now with that as background underway, let's dive into the project itself. So I'm just going to jump into that yellow box, zoom that in. This is the Limerick area of Ireland. Everything in blue there is Glencore. Everything in yellow is South 32. So we have nice neighbors. That green area is our land position. So we have the dominant ground position here. And basically the discovery is that yellow box. That's at the intersection of 2 mineralizing trends, by the way, as well. But it's only 20 kilometers south of Glencore's Palace Green deposit. And Glencore's Palace Green deposit, by the way, is one of the largest undeveloped zinc deposits in the world. It's 45 million tons, 8.4% zinc and lead. And right beside it, we have our own Stone Park deposit. And Stone Park is smaller, but shallower and richer than our neighbor. And so this is an area that is of strategic value to us, because this is probably where you want to start mining if you're going to combine and mine this in the future one day under one roof. You'd probably want to start at Stone Park. And Stone Park is co-owned by our friends here, Teeling Whiskey. So Arkle Resources is our joint venture partner. The chairman of Arkle Resources and the founder is John Teeling. And John Teeling also makes whiskey on the side, very successfully actually. So that's why our raffle prize is what it is. It's some Teeling Irish whiskey, premium Irish whiskey. So it's a little plug for Teeling whiskey. We're also exploring the lookalike to Glencore's Palace Green deposit here. So that's on the south side of the Limerick Volcanic Complex. The geology is identical from the north and the south. It's just that it just happened that the discovery was made first on the north side. That's where all the drilling went immediately for the next 20 years. But it was the south side that was completely neglected, never drilled before. And so we're the first guys to start drilling that. We've had a few iterations of preliminary drilling. We're about to go again here over the next few weeks, so stay tuned for that. But I don't have time to talk about it here. And it's still conceptual. I think we have potential there, huge potential. Just like Palace Green and Stone Park, between those two, that's 50 million tons of mineralization. I think we have similar potential down to the south. But where we have actually made the discovery is the Ballywire discovery. And this is where I'm going to zoom into now. So this is basically a picture from 97, all the way back in 97, just to demonstrate we made this discovery. There was no drilling here whatsoever beforehand. The only drilling that was done here was the few dots that you see on the map here. The only one of interest was that hole in 97, the red dot there, where they got 2.5 meters of 6% zinc and lead. And included in that was a 0.5 meter slug of massive sulfide, 0.5 meter of 20% zinc and lead. So that was fine and good. But they kind of lost it as they moved south. They drilled 2 more holes, which were smoke but not fire. And unfortunately, they got wiped out in the great financial crisis. And this became open ground for many, many a year until we came along in 2016 and we staked the whole thing. And we drilled our first hole here May 19 after having done a lot of homework. We got some pretty good smoke, nearly fire. We went again in 21, and this is the first glint of ore grade looking mineralization, economic looking or robust mineralization, 3 meters of 12% zinc and lead and 50 grams per ton silver, but also importantly had a 0.5 meter slug of massive sulfide, just like that hole from 97, running 25% zinc lead and nearly 100 grams per ton silver. So that really sparked our imagination. We thought, hey, What if those two red dots are connected? That's a kilometer distance. That would be amazing. So let's step out 300 to 400 meters in all directions and see what we get. So the first hole was mineralized, but weakly so. Second hole, similar. Third hole, much better. And on the fourth hole, bang, we got our discovery hole. That was a 60 meter zone of mineralization. Within that was 10 meters at 10% with about 100 grams per ton silver, which has become quite typical for us as we've kind of progressed along. So within it was a 2 meter slug, 40% zinc and lead at about 400 grams per ton silver. And that was hands down a discovery hole. It's in super high grades. And now the only worry for us was, is this a one-hit wonder? Is this a flash in the pan, or does this continue? Because oftentimes you get a great hole, you step out, it's gone. So we drilled these holes all up and down the dip, and luckily everything hit. Everything hit high grades and massive sulfides. And actually the best hit of that was a 60 meter step out towards the northeast. We got another 10 meters of 9% there with 50 grams per ton silver. Fantastic. So then we thought maybe there's a trend there. Let's step out another 80 meters. And yet again, we got another great hit, 18 meters at 10% zinc and lead. Not 100 grams per ton silver now, but 250 grams per ton silver with a bit of copper showing up as well. And then we really went for it, and we drilled 5 holes, and all of them hit mineralization. For example, 10 meters of 8% here with good silver, 3 meters of 8% with good silver, 5 meters of 12 with great silver, and the headliner was actually 11 meters of 9% with 83 grams per ton silver. So all very, very stellar holes for us. And the other thing we started to realize at this stage is this is a well-behaved system. If with new discoveries, you can have them in many different horizons, orientations, faulted, folded, so it can be a right mess. But with Ballywire, if you look at the long section, it's nice and well behaved. It's all along one horizon. And so that really helps, obviously, for predictability, because we've been stepping out and hitting along the way very predictably. Obviously, for future mining, it's better to have everything in one horizon as opposed to many. And then for the next MRE, when we actually put together our maiden MRE, we shouldn't have to Swiss cheese it, with pepper it with drilling, in order to convert this to an MRE, whenever that time comes, hopefully over the next 2 years or so. So that's all been fantastic. So that's about 700 meters of strike, by the way. So going back to plan view, that's where that 700 meters is. What we did next is we ran some gravity surveys, and lo and behold, we found a gravity high right over top of our discovery, but also 2 gravity highs that we hadn't drilled before to the left and to the right of us. So that was super exciting. So then we thought, okay, well, let's see if we connect all the massive sulfides that we hit so far and projected, that's pretty close to that northeastern gravity anomaly. So that really gave us the wherewithal to step out big. We decided to put a rig 930 meters away and another rig 530 meters away, a big nail biter, because those are huge step outs. But luckily we were rewarded. We got 5 meters of 5% here with half an ounce, not too shabby at all. But here we got some of the highest grades of silver ever attained over the last 60 years by anybody in Ireland, up to 1,400 grams per ton silver and 6% copper. Fantastic grades. And we thought that could only mean one thing. We're right at the feeder. And if we're at the feeder, there must be massive sulfides very, very close by, which there was with further drilling. But I guess the gist of this slide is that now we're talking about 2.6 kilometers where we've pierced very robust mineralization. And that really puts us in the same league as the greats within Ireland, like Lachine, Galmoy, or silver mines. And that really gave us a lot of comfort and a lot of confidence that basically we're talking about the same scale of system as some of the greats within Ireland. So not to bore you, I'm not going to go play by play here, but skipping ahead 1.5 years, and just to show you the progress that we've made since that time. So April of 24, we're basically up to this point where I just showed you, and September of 25, we made this progress. So I'm just going to go back and forth and show you huge amount of progress. We essentially doubled our strike. And more importantly, perhaps, we got this red zone, which is basically flat-lying zinc-rich massive sulfides. The pink is the equally good grades, but basically different texture. So in terms of veins and dissemination. So equally good in terms of mineability, etc., but just a different texture. That's the only distinction there. But it's nice to have some flat-lying massive sulfides there. And then importantly, the green is the copper and the silver zone. The deep green zones, as you can see, they're really flourishing towards the northeast. And the copper and the silver. So that's fantastic. And some of the highlights that we had over the last few months, I guess, 30 meters at 10% here with 80 grams per ton with 0.15 copper. That was a record-breaking hit for us. We then got 15 meters of 12% zinc and lead with 100 grams per ton Silver, again, a phenomenal hit. This was our best ever massive sulfide hit, 9 meters at 23 grams, 24 grams, or 24% rather, and 85 grams per ton. And then we really started to hit it out of the park more recently with 40 meters at 10. That was a record breaker for us. And then lastly, we got this 6 meter hit of nearly 1,000 grams per ton silver and nearly 4% copper. And this is the point where the market starts to say, okay, these guys have a copper system as well as a zinc system. And so this is where our market cap really started to take off. So let's zoom in on that because it's a very important hole. So BB prime, and looking at that from the side basically looks like this. The first two holes basically got some decent copper, decent zinc lead mineralization. 5 meters of 7% and 21 grams. And that 15 meters of 11% zinc and lead with good silver. We then moved on. We got 130 meter zone of mineralization, really, really nice zone. But you can see that green at the bottom really started to come in as well. So we thought there's copper starting to show up. And this is the hole that did it for us. So not only did we get the red, which is high grade zinc, but below that we got the green. And the green basically got 20 meters of 350 grams per ton silver and about 1.5% copper. And within that was at 6 meters of 838 grams per ton silver and 3.7% copper. So that's just a fantastic hole. The gross metal values per ton of this are off the charts, as you can imagine. So anyway, we're very, very happy with that. And why that was important was not just at that zone, but what it meant and the bigger picture. And so if we zoom out from that cross section, we knew down there somewhere was something called the Lower Limestone Shale. And it is known to host copper silver in this area, and only in this little area of Ireland is this mini copper belt, which I'll show you in a second. So we thought, maybe there's some copper silver to be found down below. So in September, we drilled this hole, hole 40, to test that theory. And lo and behold, we did get the Lower Limestone Shale. And so the question is, did we actually hit the copper as well? And so happy to report, yes, indeed we did. We got 5 zones of copper mineralization. The best two I'll just highlight right now. We got here a 50 meter zone roughly of 36 grams and a bit of copper, but within it was 6 meters of 200 grams and 0.34% copper with some splashes of 1,200 grams per ton. You know, that's nearly a meter of 1,200 grams per ton and 2% copper nearly, so very, very good grades. And then down here, we got 17 meters of about 10 grams silver and about 0.4% copper, but within it was a high grade zone of 2.6 meters of roughly 2/3 an ounce of silver, over 1% of copper, and about 0.15% antimony. That 0.15 antimony, by the way, antimony is $30 a pound, so that 0.15 is something north of $50 gross metal value. Just to show you that 0.15% antimony is actually quite a significant contributor to the gross metal value of that intercept. So that's a very, very good hit. And so at this stage, that was a really good verification proof of concept, but we didn't know, is the copper flat or flat lying, or is it more vertical, steeply dipping along this fault structure? And so we drilled the next hole over here, hole 44, and what we found is, yes, indeed, it's a steeply dipping structure. And so that's a lot better. That's basically a very fortuitous situation, because if you think about 2 horizontal horizons separated by 200 meters of barren rock, that wouldn't be as good as if they're connected. Obviously, the economics are much better this way. So we find ourselves in a very fortuitous situation. The fact that the copper roots are near vertical also will help out in terms of maybe narrow vein type of mining, so we can really hone in on the higher grades there. So that's actually another positive. But the other key thing that came out of that is we found a second fault zone, and that second fault zone suggests perhaps we have parallel zones of mineralization going in. Maybe the discovery to date is only 1 out of maybe 3 parallel zones going into the page and out of the page. So that was a really interesting find. And just to show you some of the grades that we got here, so this was basically 3.5 meters of 6% zinc and lead and 23 grams with a bit of copper silver at the bottom. But this is the main hit here. We got another 17 meters of 35 grams per ton silver and 0.3 copper. And within that, another, call it 2.8 meter zone of nearly an ounce, over 1% copper, and a little bit of antimony in there as well. So again, those are very healthy numbers and clearly connected to that 17 meters we hit in the first hole. So that's about 200 meters of down dip extent that we've just proven exists. And so the job for us now, before I get to that, and obviously the new fault zone is also kicking with a 5 meter hit, 2/3 of an ounce, and about 0.5% copper, not too shabby at all. So what we're doing now is expanding that along dip, and what we'll be doing is exploring that along the entire strike. And actually, Brian and I were just talking before the start. is wherever you have the zinc now, we should have the copper as well, because we've now proven it seems like it's part of the same event. And so that's the really exciting part for us. We are expecting to see a lot more copper, and there should be blowouts along the strike. So there's pinches and swells along there as well. So I'll give you a little bit more granularity on the copper silver, and these are a few new slides which are on the website as well. But basically, there's 4 copper silver historic estimates around Ballywire, and that basically forms a little halo, a little mini copper belt, if you will, of Ireland. And so this is the only place in the whole country where you see these types of these zones of mineralization effectively. So that's really interesting. So let's see what's happening at Gortrum. This was actually a mine back in the 60s. This is the open pit. If I take a cross section of some of the higher grade zones in there, C to C prime, you get this picture. And what were they getting? They were getting 30 meters of 2.4% copper and 50 grams per ton silver. You know, things like that. That's to play for at Ballywire. Going over here, which is about 45 kilometers away from Ballywire at Tulacondra, this is mineralization that is still in the ground, that was never mined. It's about a 4 million ton deposit of copper silver mineralization. And notice all these deposits are about 600 meters across. Ballywire is already 2.6 kilometers across. So Ballywire is already much bigger than the other guys around us. But just to give you an example of what these guys were getting, what's possible is that, for example, cross-section through some of the heart of that resource was 60 meters of 0.6 copper and 29 grams, another zone of 64 meters of 0.7 copper and about an ounce of silver. So if that was a porphyry hit, if you see some guys searching for porphyries, that would actually be a pretty decent intercept for copper and silver. So that's possible as well. But within it, we have some higher grade hits, 6 to 10 meters roughly, well over 1% of copper and about 40 to 100 grams per ton silver. So that's to play for as well. And lastly, most close to home, I guess, is Denison. That's only about 5 to 10 kilometers away from Ballywire. And again, about an 800 meter strike on that historic resource. And what they were basically getting in the cross section, or I guess in the yellows, you can see those 10 to 30 meters of 2%, 1%, 27 meters of 1% copper, and 50 grams silver. So definitely kicking. And then on the cross section, you can see, you know, you can easily get 50 meters, 20 to 50 meters roughly of 0.8, 0.9% coppers and well over an ounce of silver. So that's all happening in and around Ballywire. So we're very comfortable that we should be able to find more copper like that. And certainly the 6 meter hit we already got at Ballywire tells you that there's serious copper potential at Ballywire. That 6 meter hit of nearly 4% copper, 1,000 grams per ton silver, which is actually the best out of all these. If you think about the other guys that I just mentioned, we already got a better hit at Ballywire, and it's already a much bigger system. So we have a lot of confidence, basically, is what I'm trying to, the point I'm trying to make with Ballywire, the roots, and the fact we potentially down the line have some satellites of copper silver to draw from as well. So just to summarize here, I think we're getting low on time, but target summary. So again, back to plan view. This is an interesting area for us here, the flashing green, and that's basically a direct result of this new fault zone that we've discovered. We've got this area in here, which we're going to go back to shortly, which is very exciting for us. And then we've got 3 rigs running right now, working on all these holes right now in blue. So you can tell we're working on the southwest extension, the northeast extension, but there's a bigger picture here as well, and that is the gravity anomalies, regional gravity anomalies. There's 4 gravity high anomalies defining a 6 kilometer long trend here, all within the Walsroshian limestone, which is our target horizon. And basically that defines our 6 by 2 kilometer search area. And everything I've talked about so far today is within one of those 4 gravity high anomalies, the C gravity anomaly. So we're only now starting to drill or to systematically drill the D, the B, and the A over the next 18 months. Now we've got the Cormark bought deal behind us, and we're cashed up with 8.4 million. Now we have the wherewithal to really spread our wings. And so what we're hoping to do is take what we've already discovered, multiply that by 4, basically if we have success at A, B, and D, and then multiply that by 2 if we find the copper roots, and then hopefully take that and multiply that by 2 or 3 times if we're successful in finding the parallel zones. So that's really the summary of where our heads are at right now with the discovery and the potential that sort of lies here. So that's what we're trying to do. So with that, I thank you very, very much, and I'll leave you with the upcoming catalyst for the story, and I guess we might have some time for questions. So I've got a few slides here in the appendix if you have any. Maybe on the Brian, or right at the end there. Oh, perfect.
Are you proposing to do private placements in the future as opposed to buying your stock?
Well, I don't. We're not actively looking for private placements right now. We're not looking for additional capital. We've got the 8.4 million. I think discipline would dictate. We're going to take that capital and try to create a lot more value with the drill bit with that money, and then sometime, we don't really have to raise capital until, I would say, sometime early 27. So we've got a good long runway. But always, if opportunities come, or another tidbit I forgot to mention is, of course, the Irish Sovereign Wealth Fund has basically hived off 30 million euros and put it towards the IMF, very cleverly named Irish Mining Fund, and not to be confused with the other IMF, but they've just deployed that towards restarting Galmoy, and so they will be doing more. That's just the first of hopefully many investments that they'll be driving towards within Ireland to fast track Irish mining on the back of the European mining renaissance. So maybe, if the Irish government tapped us on the shoulder and said, hey, we want to put some money in, absolutely. We'd love to have the Irish government support there. But, if special situations like that might dictate, but otherwise, no.
One sort of final question. In the very worst scenario in which ABD don't generate anything, where do you see the share price going?
Well, this is where I mentioned the Gore drum's been mined out, so there's no hope there unless maybe there's some discoveries along that trend. But definitely at Tulacondra, I think there's potential to maybe tack on things. And then we've got Stone Park. So we've got Stone Park, 5 million tons. We've got Ballywire, whatever that may be, and we're hoping for north of a 10 million ton deposit. In Ireland, historically, the rule of thumb is 10 million tons at 10%. Because that infrastructure, you don't need a ginormous deposit to make it work. Like, you don't need hundreds of millions of tons. 10 million tons will do the trick. Like Galmoy was around that size. So I'm hoping, with Ballywire already without too much more success, I hope we're already close to that, plus Stone Park, plus any other satellites that we can cobble together, like I mentioned. And we already have a pretty serious situation already, I would say, without even any other exploration success. And then plus we have this behemoth Palace Green deposit. Crystal ball. Okay, get that. Well, look, I think we have a high chance. Obviously, if there's no more exploration success, we may be a stale story, right? But obviously, given the evidence, I would certainly suggest to the contrary, especially on the copper side. We've already discovered 2.6K of trend of zinc. It's very likely that the copper roots will be there in some way, shape, or form as well. So I'm pretty comfortable. But obviously, with it, like any exploration story, if you fall on your face on the exploration side, your stock's going to go down, right? But obviously, I think we've got a lot of evidence to suggest here we've got a lot more upside. A lot more upside. Yeah. Pardon? Oh, well, that's another tough question to answer. Although, yeah, I like that one as well. But I mean, I can't really. Obviously, I can't really say a number, but clearly up and a lot up. We're only 85 million market cap. You see transactions out there for billions of dollars for companies that have made discoveries in the 100 million ton range. So the South 32 transaction of Arizona Metals, I think, was around north of $2 billion US. So that's the upper limit of what you can get to in terms of finding a solid zinc, lead, silver deposit, and obviously with the copper, that's going to torque that even further. So I think our upside is kind of more towards that, but obviously we've got a lot of work to do, proving up the resource, etc. So, yep.
What's your average cost per ton of rock mine?
Well, we're not at that stage yet because we haven't done any economics. We don't have a resource estimate yet, so we're a little early to be saying that. We do have two resources already in the back pocket, Stone Park and Ballywire, and I think the engineers, when we were doing those studies back then in 2018, they were assuming something like $80 US all-in costs, I think, for their modeling. So in that ballpark. But again, it's going to be that has to be updated for current inflation rates, et cetera. But generally in that ballpark. In Ireland, it's typically the Ballywire is relatively shallow. It's going to be an underground type of mining scenario, and room and pillar. And that with the copper, I would imagine that'd be something like long hole stoping. So again, those are pretty efficient mining methods. So again, not deep, should be okay. And it's all, well behaved, like I said, so that should lend itself to pretty reasonable mining costs, I would hope.
With the whole climate change mantra going around, especially in Europe, is there a possibility that the project might be shut down, slow down?
Yeah, that's always the fear in a first world jurisdiction. But Ireland now, given the IMF, the Irish Mining Fund, is putting money into projects, and the fact that we have a whole industry that's kind of creaking right now because we're down to one mine left, and it's very deep. That's Ballywire tar deposit. Now, luckily, we have the Galmoy restart, so there's a little bit of life back in the industry now. But I think where the Irish government has always been, even with the Green Party at the helm, in with government a few years back, with Eamon Ryan at the Green Party, he was in government with Fianna Fáil, Fine Gael coalition, and they were driving towards responsible mining as being part of the circular economy. So that's definitely part of the main equation in terms of getting the wind energy up and running, because there's a lot of wind energy in Ireland. About 30% of the grid is wind. There's a lot of solar. It's not a lot of sunshine in Ireland, but you don't need direct sunlight anymore, so daylight is fine. So there's a heck of a lot of residential and industrial solar activity going on as well. And then there's the offshore development, which is going full steam ahead. They're late, but they're still going full bore ahead. And all that will require batteries. And again, zinc is one of the main batteries for energy storage. That's a nascent technology. Now, lithium is the king, but hopefully more and more these 18 companies worldwide working on zinc battery technology, that will mature. And I would hope that Ireland will adopt some of these zinc battery technologies as well, because that will make it even more circular if we can have a zinc story on the energy front. So yes, it's a first world jurisdiction, but there's a lot of positives, there's a lot of goodwill towards responsible mining in the country, especially for base metals. Yeah. Brian?
Yeah, I'm not that familiar with the economics of base metal mining in these environments at these depths. We have some high-grade hits within much broader intersections of lower-grade mineralization. Roughly speaking, what's your effective cutoff grades for, say, zinc or something? If you have 20 meters,
Yeah.
2%, is that going to get mined?
So the best way I can answer that is looking at Palace Green. So Palace Green uses 3 meters of 4% zinc and lead as a cutoff for their wire frames. 3 meters of 4%. So I've kind of used that as well in my slides. So anything I kind of label red. Anything that's below that is kind of in the yellows, but anything above that 3 meter at 4% level is in the reds. And then the massive sulfide is in the real heavy reds. So I've tried to distinguish that based on that. And of course, Palace Green has no silver. We have a lot of silver. So our cutoff in terms of 3 meters of 4% was actually probably going to be like 3% with a silver kicker.
4% zinc equivalent.
Yeah, you can.
Seems like you got a lot of that.
Yeah, that's why I'm pretty comfortable with that. Yeah. So again, with these tonnage estimates down the line, it's going to be a gradation as to where you draw the cutoff as to how big your tonnage is. So it's going to be a little bit of sussing all that out at the time. Any other questions? Thanks very much for all your attention, and thanks for showing up. Really appreciate it. Thank you.